it, and I have never found anything to prove any part of the Bible wrong, no matter how insignificant the part may be. Always a dragon. You never hear about the vicious, fire-breathing crocodiles that used to roam this land. It's always a dragon. 3, it is chemically possible for something to combine chemicals and cause combustions. I'm going to show you something cool. It's not a fire-breathing dragon, unfortunately. It's called the Bombardier Beetle. This little beetle, little tiny bug, mixes hydroquinone and hydrogen peroxide to create a series of explosions. The stuff is shooting out at 212 degrees is the boiling point of water. It shoots out a series of explosions, about 500 pulses per second. It can't just be one big explosion or the bug would rocket itself away every time it tries to attack. I always like to ask the evolutionists how they think this thing evolved. You need every part in that for it to survive. And obviously, this is not fire breath, but it's still the same concept of mixing chemicals to cause intense heat and, no matter how small, still explosions.
Quick problem for you. Boiling point of water is 100 degrees centigrade. I don't know if you're talking about Fahrenheit because you don't specify. Also, it's not combustion. It's that simple. Bombardier beetles do not use combustion. Here we go. Here's a wee hypothesis of how the beetle evolved. And this is what you've got there is an argument from incredulity. It's based in part on an inaccurate description of how the beetle's bombardier mechanism works. But even then, your argument rests solely on the lack of even looking for evidence. In fact, an evolutionary pathway that accounts for bombardier beetle is not hard to come up with. One possible hypothesis on how this sequence is, and I'll explain this for you. Insects produce quinones for tanning their cuticle. Quinones make them distasteful, so the insects evolve to produce more of them, and to produce other defensive chemicals, including hydroquinones. The insects evolve depressions for storing quinones and muscles for ejecting them onto their surface when threatened with being eaten. The depression becomes a reservoir with secretory glands, supplying hydroquinones into it. This configuration exists in many beetles, including close relatives of the bombardier beetles. Hydrogen peroxide then becomes mixed with hydroquinones. Catalases and peroxidases appear alongside the output passage of the reservoir, ensuring that more quinones appear in the exuded product. More catalases and peroxidases are produced, generating oxygen and producing a foamy discharge, as in the bombardier beetle Metrius contractus. As the output passage becomes a hardened reaction chamber, still more catalases and peroxidases are produced, gradually becoming today's bombardier beetles. All of the steps are small, can easily be broken down into smaller ones, and all are probably selectively advantageous even. Several of the intermediate stages are known to be viable by the fact that they exist in other living species. Bombardier beetles were destroyed. Your argument for bombardier beetles were destroyed a long time ago.
And the fourth thing, and possibly the best thing, is that many dinosaurs had large cavities in their head. For example, Parasaurolophus had a large hollow compartment in his head that scientists can't quite explain. They say it was for making a trumpet noise or something. Kind of a strange theory, but it's really just a shot in the dark.
As opposed to your strange guess about God making the world in 6 days, and then deciding to rest because, being all powerful, he was knackered. Fuck off. Just fuck off, Sean.
But it's interesting that this whole area is connected to his sinus passages. I would theorize that this opening was used to store chemicals.
No, Sean, you hypothesize that it was used to store chemicals. However, in reality, it's not true. Now, the Parasaurolophus had a beak. Not many beaks are suitable for flame throwing. Really, come on to fuck. Now, admittedly, it had a long, backwards-leaning, hollow, bony crest that was bigger than the rest of its skull, and it may have been used to produce a low-frequency foghorn-like sound, or enhance its sense of smell, and it may have been used in courtship displays. Now, The Parasaurolophus, his nostrils, which were at the end of its snout, went up through the crest and back down it, forming 4 tubes. The crest was up to 6 feet, 6 feet in length. Its snout was narrow and shorter than our hadrosaur snouts. There may have been sex differences in the length of the crest. Males may have had longer ones. The Parasaurolophus also had a notch in its back, right where the crest would touch the back when its head leaned backwards. I mean, just because it's attached to the sinus does not mean much. Your throat is attached to your sinuses. Did you know that? That's a noise I'm making through my nose. Have you noticed that? It does not mean I am breathing fire. For fuck's sake. Honestly. If you cannot realise how much shite you're talking, then at least listen to people that are telling you you're talking shite.
T-Rex, obviously we know T-Rex has a huge head and the brain the size of a baseball. The rest of the space is filled with plumbing, again connected to his sinuses. And there's a lot more of these. I'm not going to go through every single one. There's a lot. Back to Job. Verse 22, And his neck remaineth strength, and sorrow is turned into joy before him. The flakes of his flesh are joined together, they are firm in themselves, they cannot be moved. His heart is as a firm stone, yea, as a hard piece of nether millstone. When he raiseth himself up, the mighty are afraid. By reasons of breakings they purify themselves. The sword of him that layeth at him cannot hold, the spear, the dart, nor the habergeon. He esteemeth iron as straw, and brass as rotten wood. The arrows cannot make him flee. Sling stones are turned into stubble. Turned with him into stubble. Man, King James is crazy. Darts are counted as stubble. He laugheth at the shaking of his spear.
Sean, did you just admit that the Bible was crazy? Or that the version that you're taking it from was crazy?
Turned with him into stubble. Man, King James is crazy.
Yes, you did! So if you're saying that the version of the Bible you're reading is crazy, then everything that you are saying comes from the Bible is crazy. Unless, why would you think it fact?
Sure. Sharp stones are under him. He spreadeth sharp pointed things upon the mire. The point is, he's really tough. You're not going to hurt him in any way. He's tough. He maketh the deep to boil like a pot. He maketh the sea like a pot of ointment. He maketh the path to shine after him. One would think the deep to be hoary. This doesn't really help us anything, but it's interesting to think he's oily. Again, doesn't matter, but it's kind of cool. Upon the earth there is none his like, who is made without fear. He beholdeth all high things. He is a king over all the children of pride. So basically, he's tough, and he knows it. Well, looking at these clues, and again, I wasn't there. I didn't write the book. I had just taking a guess. But looking at these clues, maybe.
You've been listening to Kent Ham, haven't you? Because he said that the Kronosaur was Leviathan. Okay, well, here's a problem for you. Armour. The Kronosaurus didn't have armour. And it didn't have fiery breath. Indeed, Leviathan itself, the word, that comes from the Jewish translation, obviously, because it's a Jewish text. And the word Leviathan comes from a Hebrew word meaning one who twists and coils, or the winding one. Now, Leviathan is described as a snake-like sea creature. No dinosaur, along with their sea-going contemporaries, ever had bodies that twist and coils like a snake. All dinosaurs, including ankylosaurs, lived only on land. Some dinosaurs do occasionally swim, however, but none of them live their entire lives in the water. So Leviathan is overall neither a dinosaur nor a Mesozoic marine reptile. So there you go. Okay, except in mythology also, no animal has ever breathed fire. None in all our records has ever breathed fire. It's only in mythology. So, yeah, enjoy that one.
Fits. We're going to look at the second one on the list now, Behemoth. Going backwards a chapter to Job 40, verse 15. Behold now Behemoth, which I made with thee. He eateth grass as an ox. Okay, that's obviously a clue. He eats grass. Well, a lot of animals eat grass. That doesn't tell us that much. Lo, now his strength is in his loins, and the force is in the navel of his belly. Okay, big belly. That's narrowing it down. A lot of Bible footnotes say that this animal was probably a elephant or a hippopotamus. Well, they both eat grass, they both have a big belly. Let's keep looking. He moveth his tail like a cedar, the sinews of his stones are wrapped together. He moveth his tail like a cedar. Needless to say, cedar trees are big, so he had a big tail.
John, you didn't quote mine the Bible for once. Hooray! Because most of your creationist buddies tend to say that he moveth his tail is like the cedar, I should say. Instead of he moveth like the cedar. However, you do go on to fuck up. Because the tail here, you go on to say that it's obvious that the tail is big because it is like a cedar. So while you didn't quote mine in quoting the passage, you decide to instead ignore the moving like, and you say it is as big as a cedar, when there's nothing in the passage to say anything about the size of his tail. Oh, and about the chewing of grass, here's a quick problem for you. For him to chew grass, the behemoth that is, he would need molars and premolars, which sauropod dinosaurs didn't have. The jaw would have to move sideways in a circular motion as well as up and down, and that's something that sauropods couldn't do. They could only browse at the top of the trees. Also, the navel. You do remember that dinosaurs are reptilian, right? Okay. And avian-like. They don't have navels. Yeah. Reptiles and avians do not have navels. All because they are not born like mammals are. They are birthed from eggs, not from inside the womb. So they have no need for a navel like we do, because they're not attached to their mother, nor are they attached to the egg in any way like that.
Does that fit an elephant or a hippo? I don't think so. I think they should keep reading before they start making notes. His bones are as strong pieces of brass. His bones are like bars of iron. Okay, big strong bones. Something like that. He is the chief of the ways of God. He that made him can make his sword to approach unto him. So he's the chief. He is the biggest, toughest thing God has ever created. Well, that's not the elephant. That's not a hippo. I think that's a pretty good fit. I really honestly can't think of any other animal that even comes close to that. That would be the biggest, toughest thing I've could ever imagine. And it does continue on a few more verses about him, which don't really tell us anything in his identification, but they're...
Sean, the hippo is the most dangerous animal in Africa. It's got big, strong bones. It can bite a crocodile in two with its teeth. Big, strong, powerful jaws and its teeth, which are made of ivory. And let us look at the list, because if you think a sauropod dinosaur is the behemoth, then it's time to look at the pros and cons of your argument. Now I've presented mine. So, eats grass, big belly, big tail, strong bones, biggest, toughest animal ever created. That's your version. Well, for a start, the sauropod dinosaurs can eat grass. I've already explained that one, because they don't have the bodily ability to eat it. Big belly, well, yes, a sauropod has that, but again, so does the hippopotamus. Big tail, your scriptures don't actually say anything about the size of the tail, so again, hippopotamus is still likely there. Strong bones, hippopotamus. Biggest, toughest animal ever created is what you've got written down there, but what you say is that it's the most dangerous animal to sit around. Well, that would be the hippo in Africa. Yes, that's called the hippo. And seeing as your book seems to centre around the continent of Africa, the hippo is the most likely thing that they would ever face as being the most dangerous. So, I would suggest the hippo as a behemoth more than a sauropod dinosaur, due to the facts.
are interesting, and we'll come back to them later on, but keep these in the back of your mind. Surely the mountains bring him forth food where all the beasts of the field play. He lieth under the shady trees in the covert of the reeds and fens. So, he lives in the swamp. That's interesting. Think about that. The shady trees cover him with their shadow. The willows of the brook compass him about. Behold, he drinketh up a river, he hasteth not. He trusteth that he can draw up Jordan into his mouth. He taketh it with his eyes, his nose pierceth through snares. That's it for Behemoth. But keep those last verses in the back of your mind.
No, I think I'll dismiss them now, Sean, because a sauropod was not amphibious, despite what they believed in the 1900s. They were not amphibious. Whereas the hippo is. It's that simple. The sauropod was not amphibious. It was not designed to be amphibious. If anything, it would have hated being in water. So, destroyed once again, Sean. What a pity for you, eh?
Now we're going to look at the last two. These last two, they're mentioned in more than one place, but there's not much detail given, so I'm just kind of taking an estimation here, but obviously next is unicorn. Again, not a horse. Well, it talks about, in a few different areas, it talks about the strength of the unicorn, and in many places compares them to an ox, and it also obviously talks about the horns of the unicorn. That's where the name came from. And those types of things are mentioned a few times through Scripture, but really that's all they tell us over and over again. So, just kind of taking a shot in the dark. Maybe that's what they're talking about.
Hate to bother you, Sean, but see in the King James Bible, unicorns, when mentioned, are either pluralized or singularized. And when they're singularized, that one time they have the horn mentioned when they're single is in Psalms 92:10. But my horn shalt thou exalt like the horn of the unicorn. I shall be anointed with the fresh oil. Whereas every other time they're mentioned with a horn, they're pluralized, like in Psalms 22:21. Say me from the lion's mouth, for thou hast heard from me the horns of unicorns. Horns, plural. So that would suggest that the creature had one horn. So it's not a triceratops, like you've got there. Rhinoceros, far more likely. Ox, possibly, though that would be two horns, not one. However, Triceratops, very unlikely, seeing as the ox and the rhinoceros are very strong. Also, Sean, unicorn, well, the word itself means one horn. That's right, uni means one, corn means horn, so unicorn, one horn. Oh no, I've destroyed your Triceratops thing again, haven't I?
And the last one is the fiery flying serpent. Again, not a lot here. In fact, it's mentioned quite a few times, but really, all they tell us is the name. Maybe?
Oh, Sean. Pterosaur, a flying, fiery serpent. Okay, at what point does that look like a serpent to you?
And there were a lot of different types of these kind of dinosaurs. There were a lot of different shapes, sizes, etc. But it's interesting, a lot of, not all, but a lot of them had a large protrusion on the back of their head, maybe, again, to store chemicals, which would make them fiery.
Sean, seriously? The crest, composed completely of keratin? Come on to fuck. They don't fossilise as much as bone, which means they're harder to find. But, however, they were just thin pieces of flesh. They're only a crest. Nothing major in it.
And that's really all I have as far as dinosaurs in Scripture. There are more, but more of the same, really. So now we're going to move on to dinosaurs through history. As I mentioned before, the term dinosaurs first used in 1841, meaning terrible lizard. The word was created by Sir Richard Owen. He was an anatomist and a paleontologist. He knew what he was talking about. Note also that, as mentioned in my last message, Creation, Curse, Catastrophe, animals live to a much greater age. Interesting fact about reptiles, they never stop growing. The older they get, the bigger they get.
John, have you got historical records of dinosaurs? Of course, I don't believe you do. However, I'll tackle that in your next video. And I can't wait for that, because I think you'll be using probably St. George. Probably ancient tales from the medieval periods, you know, Dark Ages, when learning was destroyed by the mass amount of Christianity that was around. Yeah, the mass spreading of Christianity. Can't wait to destroy this one, mate. Anyway, YouTube, there's only going to be one video left after this one, of this series. So, see you next time.
It's getting harder to feel for all the people I kill. No time to cry for